this next phase that I feel like I'm entering and I'm going into. I don't do podcasts.
Right.
I don't speak because we live in a generation where they're gonna pick apart everything you say, and it just introduces you to being attacked.
Well, that's a great question. I want to launch a project to bring Black Wall Street.
And then he sided with Kyrie Irving when Nike dropped Kyrie.
Well, I'm at the point where attack me. It's I stand on what I stand for. I'm gonna be me, and I'm gonna stand for my community in this life and the next.
Well, now tuned in to the Dark Times channel.
And so here we go again, back with another one. Welcome back to the Dark Times channel. And before I get started, make sure you guys go ahead and hit that like button for me. And if you're not new to the channel and you've been enjoying the content so far on this channel, make sure you guys go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me as well. And so here we go again, back with another one. And as you all know, I've done quite a few videos on Jaylen Brown in regards to his activism and his on-court play and just his overall excellence. And Jaylen Brown did a sit-down the other day with Stephen A. Smith, and for me and for a lot of people, it further confirmed just exactly what we thought about Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown is that one, and I don't say that lightly. I've never said that about anyone, let alone a sports figure. But he said a lot during this interview and during this sit-down to make me come to this conclusion. And one of the things that really stood out during this interview is when Jaylen Brown was asked about the late Kobe Bryant. And I felt that the response that Jaylen Brown gave was very telling. I'm gonna go ahead and let the clip play, and then of course I'll come back and chime in.
Is there an NBA player that you look up to more than others?
I pulled a lot from Kobe Bryant as well. I know Kobe didn't do a lot of talking either.
But he,
But
he acted a lot.
He acted a lot, and I followed a lot of his moves. A lot of the reason why I started this shoe company is because I read an article around 2019 or so that Kobe was doing the same thing. Before he passed, you know, I read that he had partnered with like the CEO of Uber or whatnot, and he wanted to give athletes better percentages and better deals and allow them to be able to invest into the company as it grows. And I thought this was unique. You know, I remember like seeing this, and they had a picture of the shoe as well.
And so like I said earlier, that was a very interesting response in regards to the late Kobe Bryant and what Kobe Bryant was trying to do and just what he was trying to accomplish with the second chapter of his life. And that's something that I actually had heard about right around the time of Kobe's passing, and the tinfoil hat comes on a little bit and the wheels start turning and you start thinking about things and how things just don't add up. I'm not gonna dive into that, but you all can read between the lines if you know what I mean. But just to dive a little bit deeper into what Jaylen Brown was talking about and to confirm what he was talking about in regards to Kobe Bryant, I came across this article in which it said Shervin Peshavar, one of the investors behind Uber, revealed that Kobe was very much on the same path before his untimely demise. And the article goes on to say what he was about to do in business was going to eclipse his sports career. Bryant was working with the investor to launch Mamba, a shoe brand that would give athletes greater ownership over their likeness. And so that's a very telling statement also. And that's coming from one of the investors behind Uber, saying that what Kobe Bryant was about to do was gonna eclipse what he did as an athlete. And that says a lot. Like I said, there's a lot of different things you hear that Kobe Bryant was doing as far as starting his own media company. There was even talks about Kobe Bryant starting his own basketball league to help develop athletes, homegrown athletes here in the United States, instead of going over to Europe and developing those athletes to come over here and take jobs away from American players. And that's a whole nother can of worms that I'm not gonna get into, but you guys can read between the lines when it comes to that. So Kobe Bryant was doing a lot without saying a lot. And that's one of the knocks that a lot of us had on Jaylen Brown, including myself. I'm guilty of that as well. When Jaylen Brown first came out, when he first got his big deal, his $300 million deal, one of the first things that came out of his mouth was how he wanted to restart Black Wall Street. And a lot of us had issue with that, not with the notion of doing it, but with the notion of telling the world. Because a lot of us have been conditioned, myself included, to play the game and to move in silence.
To push that line, because the next generation is watching. And if we don't want the same results for the next 20 years, 50 years. It's the same corporations. We don't own anything. We don't understand our value. We constantly sell ourselves short. We depict it a certain way in the media. Things that we've talked about and complained about for years. Then someone has to be the catalyst or a pioneer to have the courage enough to be like, you know what, let's do it. Before, like the social norms of like corporate America is like, man, you gotta dress a certain way, speak a certain way, you know, be a certain way. You gotta have a college degree to be successful. This is what I view as playing the game. 2024, I think that still exists, but we've seen that game change. Where now you could be yourself, you could dress casually or however you feel comfortable. You could have red, blue, yellow, green hair, and people will still accept you if you're good at your craft.
Right.
And so Jaylen Brown is 100% correct. It's a new day. And a lot of us from the older generation, you know, I'm not old enough to be Jaylen Brown's father or anything like that, but I would consider myself to be a generation ahead of him. You know, a lot of us can't understand the thinking behind this. We've been conditioned to keep our heads down and just play the game.
Do any of them ever come to you and talk to you on that level?
Give me an example, like what would they say?
Yo, bro, you might need this money for this program. You might need this money. You might need additional resources for the projects that you're working on. Again, you might have to toe the line a little bit. Do they ever tell you that? Any of them ever tell you that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I heard this saying a long time ago, and a lot of you guys may have heard this as well. The only way to win the game is to not play the game. Because as long as you're playing the game that somebody else designed, you're never gonna win the game. And so the only way to win is to not play the game at all. And this is something that a young Jaylen Brown, soon to be 28-year-old Jaylen Brown, comprehends and understands to the highest level. And so in hindsight, the best thing that Jaylen Brown could have did is exactly what he did. After he got his contract, he announced to the world exactly what he was gonna do. And a lot of people, like I said, including myself, had an issue with it. But that was the best thing he could have done. Because in this day and age, especially when you got the kind of money that Jaylen Brown did and the kind of money that the late Kobe Bryant did, there's nothing that these people don't know about. There's no investment, there's no money, there's no portfolio that they don't know about, that they're not aware of. But what it did do, it let people in the grassroots know. It let us know that there is one. There's somebody out there in this younger generation that's thinking differently, that's gonna do something, that's gonna make a positive impact on the next generation, and is thinking outside the box. And this is exactly what this generation should be doing, this younger generation should be doing. They should be thinking the total opposite of what we thought. That's how it goes. Everything changes. Everything's always in flux. Nothing stays still. Everything keeps moving. But it takes that younger generation to have that kind of understanding. One of my favorite movies, The Matrix, there's a scene in there where Morpheus is talking about some of the reason and the logic as to why they don't go in and wake up older individuals. And the logic and the thinking behind that was because it was impossible in most cases. Once an individual reached a certain age, it was nearly impossible to wake them up. The mind couldn't take it.
Built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this.
And that's how a lot of us are. A lot of us have been conditioned to think a certain way, and we've been programmed to believe a certain way, and Stephen A. Smith would fall along those lines. This is an individual that has said on record, has said on television that he wakes up every day thinking about how to please his bosses, how to make his bosses more money. And that's the mindset from a lot of people from Stephen A.'s generation. And so when they see a Jaylen Brown, they can't understand, they can't fathom an individual, let alone a 28-year-old, turning down $50 million worth of endorsements.
I'm thinking about you and what you've done or trying to do in Oakland and how you got your man Jason Kidd helping you with that. I'm thinking about endorsement deals that you supposedly turned down in excess of $50 million, if I remember correctly. I think about reading that. I'm looking at you having turned down over $50 million in endorsement deals to launch your own performance brand, 741, these sneakers right here.
Yes, sir.
You understand? I'm thinking about all of that. And before I go to commercial, I have to ask you, do you realize Damn it, everybody ain't you.
They can't fathom somebody like Jaylen Brown being inside of the proverbial house, being clothed, being fed, being taken care of, financially stable, more than financially stable. We're talking about generational wealth, having all that, but yet looking outside, looking at his people still suffering, still going through it, and wanting to make a difference. Loudly, boldly, unapologetically. They can't understand that. But this is what chaos looks like. Most of you who follow my channel know that I always end with peace and chaos. Because this is what chaos looks like. There's a time for everything. And chaos is not always a negative thing. Sometimes it takes an individual to cause some chaos in a situation that wasn't chaotic to begin with. But it needed to be chaotic for it to change. And that's exactly what Jaylen Brown's doing. And it sounds like from the way that he's talking and the way that he's moving, this is somebody that is stepping into their manhood. Like I said, he's about to turn 28 years old. And in a lot of people's eyes, you don't really become a man until you hit 30. And so Jaylen Brown, it sounds like somebody who's definitely stepping into who he was meant to be. And he's about to get even more unapologetic, it sounds like.
Because of who I am and because of how I approach things and what I stand for, it intimidates people and rugs people the wrong way, and I think good, because there's a lot of organizations, there's a lot of things that need to be changed. We see the results from our former players, we see the results in our community, and nobody thinks that we need to change some of these cycles. So you should feel a certain type of way when I walk into the room. But this next phase that I feel like I'm entering and I'm going into, I don't do podcasts.
Right.
I don't speak because we live in a generation where they're gonna pick apart everything you say. Damn. And it just introduces you to being attacked. Well, I'm at the point where, like, attack me. Like, I stand on what I stand for. I'm gonna be me, and I'm gonna stand for my community in this life and the next.
And so, like I said in the beginning of this video, Jaylen Brown is that one. You know, we like to say that sports figures shouldn't be role models, but that's not reality. That's not how the world works. The youth are always gonna look to entertainers and athletes as role models, whether they know it or not, even on the subconscious level. That's just how the mind works. You emulate and you imitate what you watch the most. And so Jaylen Brown is not only necessary, but he's needed and he's definitely appreciated. And this is an individual that should be protected at all costs. And so I'm looking forward to buying some shoes and any other merchandise that I can buy and any other way that I can show some support, as we all should. But I think that's gonna be a wrap on this one. You guys go ahead and let me know how y'all feel in the comment section. And as usual, peace and chaos.